James is having a mostly green meal today with a little bit of pink hints, and I'm having some miso soup. And we're going to be talking about the eat right for your type, live right for your type, whatever, and some magnesium therapy today. And it's very bright, so I don't know if my camera's going to do well with the light dark thing. But anyway, you probably want to put Paris down so you can actually keep the flies off your meal, because I'm not going to do it for you, because I'm going to have to deal with mine.
She'd just like to keep the meal away from the flies another way, you know, like just by chowing down. So, but she's being a very good dog, you know. She was tempted, but she refrained.
So in between doing reading through serious stuff, I've been reading through some fiction lately. So
you're trying to get some clues as to how to write certain things, right?
Sure.
Generally.
But no, I just find that when I'm going through, right now, I've been under a lot of stress, as most people have during the pandemic, especially when you realize that the authorities have no interest in controlling it. So, anyway.
And Pauline's being very, very fair to them, because
they're actually
it looks as though they're
encouraging it.
Complicit at the very least.
So anyway, but we'll talk about that later. Gosh, these flies, they love your salmon.
That's
okay. The Zanzibar cat. Now, I wouldn't actually encourage anyone to read this book, but I got through to page 125, and then all of a sudden, like, I was thinking, God, why am I reading this? Because I'm the kind of person, once I start it, I have to finish it. And so I got to that point, and I was like, I shouldn't have started it. But then it became funny. So once I got to useful phrases for the tourist, and she's visiting the Lochrein, High Lochrein, and James says that's a pun for something, but I don't know what
it might have something to do with Lochrein, which we don't know much about them. They're kind of in mainland Greece, to the west of Athens and north of the Gulf of Corinth.
But this is really an alien thing. So she's traveling, So anyway,
their mode of music to us sounds what we think was their mode, or some people sounds very foreign to us. So I think she just wanted to fit something that was kind of foreign and off-putting, whatever.
So when the first one is at the hotel, there's a few phrases that you must know how to. And this cannot be my room because I cannot breathe ammonia. And I thought that was funny, but by the time, there's some funny things in here, and it's throughout. There's like at the party, take me to the Earth consulate immediately. And this is like a common refrain throughout the thing. It's like, this is terrible, right? This is a terrible place to visit, and you've got to retreat to safety somehow. You got to find. So anyway, in the hospital, the phrases you need to know. No! Exclamation mark. That's the first one. Yeah. My eating orifice is not at that end of my body. And I do not eat lead. Placing the thermometer there will yield little or no useful information. I just was laughing and laughing and laughing. And then I gave it to James to read, and he didn't laugh. And I thought,
Well, I was on, coming down off treatment for cancer, and it's rather a rigorous treatment, so it might have been that more than anything else.
But I did find her writing artful. That was the comedy part. But here's a bit that's she's talking about her father here, or the character's father. He made fishing ties by hand with a jeweler's loop and tweezers, working on bits of tufted fluff as delicate as thoughts. I loved that. I thought that was just beautiful. So, as much as I didn't care for the book. So,
But she did laugh genuinely. It's a very short chapter.
yes,
Relatively short book.
so you can get it from your public library and go through that.
They might
At
actually
the
be giving
library,
it away
you
like
probably
this
don't.
library
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lethbridge Library.
Well, they threw out so many books.
It's appalling. You were looking at some books. Asked me to vet them.
I'm covering my soup with this. There. That's,
Yep.
No, that's not going to work out.
And, they're giving away Mark Twain, the complete poems of Schiller. Yeah, translated in English, but what the hey?
Okay.
Come on.
So we're going to be going through this a little bit, and then I'm going to talk about horticulture and anyway, the use for magnesium after you're done with your bathwater. So this transdermal magnesium therapy, and I'm going to read just a few bits that I marked because I didn't feel like writing everything out. So page 12, dietary magnesium intake was inversely related to coronary artery calcium levels. In other words, the lower the magnesium intake through diet, the higher the calcium levels in the coronary system. Coronary artery calcium is considered an indicator of the blocked artery disease known as atherosclerosis. Magnesium, I'm on page 100 now. Magnesium and copper are important modulators of NMDA receptor activity. Recent data indicate that disturbances of glutamatergic transmission, especially via NMDA receptor, are involved in the pathogenesis of mood disorders. So magnesium deficiency is related to a variety of psychological symptoms, including depression. And anyway, so there's that. Page 210, chemically both magnesium sulfate, MgSO4, and magnesium chloride, MgCl2. That's okay, you do yours. Are hexaaqueous complexes. However, MgCl2 crystals consist of dianions with magnesium coordinated to the 6 water molecules as a complex, MgH2O6 2+, and 2 independent chloride anions, Cl negative in MgSO4. A 7th water molecule is associated with a sulfate anion. Consequently, the more hydrated MgSO4 molecule may have chemical interactions with paracellular components rather than with cellular components, presumably potentiating toxic manifestations while reducing therapeutic effect. And I've heard that you have to be careful about what kinds of magnesium you use. Okay, page 273, magnesium and hot flashes. Since we see that magnesium plays a significant role in regulation of blood sugars and regulation of body temperature, it makes good sense to use it for treatment of vasomotor symptoms during menopause. Women can expect to find great improvement, more comfort, less mood disturbances, smoother transition to postmenopause. In addition, magnesium serves as a natural muscle relaxant, making it useful for relieving such symptoms as muscle cramping and anxiety. Page 280. Why is magnesium not promoted by doctors as the pain relief medicine it truly is? Question mark.
Doctors don't have a clue about nutrition.
Okay, I'm going to try to do that and see if that works. So, the first one of these books that I read, I would actually, you've heard of these, I'm sure. Everyone has by now. And I'd actually recommend that everyone has them as a part of their home library because I've went through them so many times. And I forget the things, I go over it again. I'll read a few things from Eat Right for Your Type, which was the first one that I went through. And these things are really interesting. So they have on page 333 and forward, blood type charts for like what you should avoid eating. If you're a type O, you're the hunter. So you're supposed to be a meat eater, really. High protein meat eaters. Diet profile, meat, fish, vegetables, fruit, and a limited amount of grains, beans, legumes. And so in this one, this one, I'll talk more about the beans. So anyway, weight loss key: avoid wheat, corn, kidney beans, navy beans, lentils, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, mustard greens. And aids: kelp, seafood, salt, liver, red meat, kale, spinach, and broccoli. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything that he's saying here. That I don't think, because I'm a type O.
Here's some water.
And I have found without, well, this probably influenced me subconsciously because I would have had this in, but I was drinking loads of kale juice for my protein, and that was working out really nicely for me. And kale is one of the things that, well, everyone is supposed to handle. All the blood group types handle that. So I don't necessarily think you need to be a meat eater if you're a type O. Anyway, well, I don't think you need to be. So type A is the cultivator, type B is the nomad, and type A has a sensitive digestive tract, vulnerable immune system, open to microbial invasion. Type B, anyway, they're the nomad. It says balanced, flexible, creative. And I think there's a preference here for type B. But anyway, from the writer. So type AB, the enigma. Anyway, so you can read more about that on those pages. It's very interesting. And then racial classifications. Very interesting stuff. So page 360, this was talking about in the 1920s, several anthropologists first attempted racial classification based on blood groups. Very interesting, the time frame, and anyway. European type, high frequency of blood type A, low frequency of type B, perhaps the result of type A blood originating in Western Europe. This category included English, Scots, French, Belgians, Italians, and Germans. Intermediate type A, sort of blend between Western, high type A, Central, high type B. European populations, higher incidence of blood type O overall. This category included the Finns, Arabs, Russians, Spanish Jews, Armenians, and Lithuanians. Hunan type, Oriental groups with a high incidence of blood type A, possibly the result of an infusion of Caucasian elements including the Ukrainians, Poles, Hungarians, Japanese, Romanian Jews, Koreans, and South Chinese. Indo-Manchurian type, contain population groups with a high incidence of blood type B over type A. This type includes the subcontinental Indians, Gypsies, Northern Chinese, and Manchus. Africo-Malaysian type, moderately higher incidence of type A and type B overall, with normal incidence of type O. This category includes Javanese, Sumatrans, Africans, and Moroccans. Pacific American type, including Filipinos, North and South American Indians, and Eskimos. Extremely high incidence of type O. And RH plus blood types. Very small incidence of type A, and almost absent incidence of type B. Australasian type, principally the Australian Aborigines. The classification shows high incidence of type A, almost equivalent to Western Europe, almost no type B, and a high incidence of type O, although not as high as with the Pacific American type. So that's pretty interesting. And I think after this one, originally I read this one, so I'll read what I marked off in here. So this, for the type O's, the beans and legumes that are beneficial are adzuki beans and black-eyed peas. And that's what I found. And the black-eyed peas, they're high in zinc, so that would be why. And there's quite a few beans that are neutral: black bean, broad bean, cannellini bean, fava bean, garbanzo bean, green bean, jicama, lima bean, mung bean, sprouts, northern bean, red bean, snap bean, soybean. I don't agree with the soy thing. And white beans. So anyway, in my soup today, I have the northern ones. And avoid copper bean, I don't know what that is, kidney bean, lentils, navy bean, pinto bean, and tamarind bean. And I don't have tamarind very often, but I haven't found it to be a problem. But maybe that's because I don't have it very often. Kidney beans, I have found independently, yes, I shouldn't have them. And pintos don't work out very well for me. But I haven't had a problem with lentils, and I don't know. Anyway, but that's what he says. So I thought I'd read that out to you. Just in case you're a typo and you're like, oh gosh, if I'm supposed to avoid beans, how am I going to get my protein? Well, I found kale. But I also eat beans, but just kale's great. So anyway, now this one, Eat Right for Your Type, the Complete Blood Type Encyclopedia. And this is interesting. So if you're experiencing some sort of a pandemic or plague, you might want to look into, oh, well, what is this? Because there's a lot of really, really racist people in the world. And
Really
seriously racist.
Systematically racist.
Yes. And you might be wondering, okay, well,
racist,
they might be targeting a specific blood type because the blood types that tend to be from different specific places in the world, right? And anyway, so bacterial disease, cholera, Group O has a huge severity / susceptibility to it compared to Group AB. Like, it's way different. You might want to look into that. So that was on, well, I'll just give you the things. You look at, there's an index. Bacterial disease, diphtheria. Group O has a very low incidence of it, or susceptibility, and the others really high. So, bacterial disease, pneumonia. Group B has a really high susceptibility, the others, average. Bacterial disease, Yersinia plague. Group O, high, everyone else average. Cancer. Group O's and B's don't have a very high risk of cancer compared to the others. AB, much higher. Brain cancer, Group O, low. Group B, average. The other two, high. Viral disease, influenza. Group AB has a really high susceptibility.
So where was that found? Who were the Chinese People's Republic of China trying to wipe out? It might be interesting to check out.
You can look back in that. So anyway, Group O, low. So my guess is it may be that Group O isn't having a very high susceptibility. Oh, I forgot to look up the heart disease though, which O is susceptible to. So I'm going to have to index this, because we're seeing a lot with this flu. There's a lot of trouble with the heart. All sorts of things. And even with the even with the vaccinations themselves are even causing trouble with the heart. So
tachycardia.
Yeah, we're told not as much problem as without, and that's with the mRNA and the other. So cardio.
And the AstraZeneca, and presumably, well, I'm not sure, the Johnson & Johnson.
There we go, 216. I'm really tired. That took me way too long.
Hey, girl.
Okay, so again, Group AB for cardiovascular disease, high. Group A, high. Group O, average. Group B, average. So there you go. Just to be looking through everything there. So anyway, I'd highly recommend you go through these and you know, grain of salt, whatever. I don't know if you want to trust naturopaths or whatever, but I've found this interesting.
Don't
Did you?
trust anyone, particularly
Yeah.
your GP.